So now we're going to talk about the issue of discrimination. Last year, we found some quite horrifying stats in that 85% of women and 32% of men had suffered some form of discrimination. In reality, one of the journalists I sent this phoned me up to ask for the sample size because it was such a shockingly high figure. For both the men and women, though, it's worse with clients. So they're the stats within the industry from colleagues. The stats are worse when it comes to how clients treat our colleagues. Overall, though, that means half of the industry has experienced discrimination, some of it quite severe. Kirsty, in your role with Women in a State Agency, what can the industry do better to address this?
I hate to say that I'm not surprised by the statistics. I think from a Women in a State Agency point of view, we hear this and see this far too much, and it's prevalent. And I think, you know, we know how many women are in this industry. We know how many successful women are in this industry in all sorts of different roles across the sector. We also know how many few women are in leadership roles within the sector. So there's a huge outpouring of comments, questions, support that comes from across the industry in the Women in a State Agency Facebook group. But actually, the change doesn't come from saying, okay, as women, we're going to do this to tackle this problem. The change comes from together, how do we make a difference? How do we talk about the things that not everybody else is talking about? How do we break the taboo? How do we speak up and have our voices heard? How do we come together as a sector, shine a spotlight on some of these issues and stand up and say, this actually isn't okay, and together, how can we do something about it?
And a difficult question, I'm not expecting people to, we'll work out how to go into this, but in the conversation I have with a lot of the women I know who work within the industry, the same names come up. There is a group of people who are known to be on the wrong side of this debate, but no one ever mentions them. And it's like it is the big secret in our industry. Is this industry going to have a Harvey Weinstein moment? And at some point we actually start naming the offenders, some of whom who've done quite appalling things, and they occupy quite senior positions. And I know it's a difficult and delicate subject.
It is difficult and delicate. And I'm sure when we're all sat here, we've all got a little, probably maybe even different names that spring to mind. I don't think that that's necessarily the relevant part to that. Honestly, I can sit here and tell you that as a woman in this industry, that I think that's scary, because whether we like it or not, people in powerful positions, they can do a lot of damage to somebody and their career. And, you know, Kirsty and I both are very, very strong in terms of, no, we will call out bad behaviour. There has to be a line where you have to, and it's awful because I hate to sit on that side of history and say, there's a line where I go, oh, I can't fight this battle. And there are occasions when that happens. And there has been occasions where I've put my head up and gone, whoop, I'm going to do it. And then gone, oh, I wish I hadn't done it. We can focus on the negatives, but when I actually look at the positives, as I look around, and I actually have so much hope that that next generation of women coming in are going to look around and be, there's a Chris and a Simon and a Toby, you know, those are the men that we need to start pushing into more powerful positions.
We've got the Women in a State Agency conference coming up in March. We've now got over 30% of that audience as men, which is really promising to me. And that's grown year on year, and just comes back to your point, Meg, around, you know, it takes the men around this table and in the community to kind of go, actually, we want to be part of this. And there is change coming. You can see it coming, and there's pockets still. Yes, sure, there's pockets. And, you know, in answer to your question before, Simon, we would stand up and talk, but if somebody is not comfortable standing up and publicly saying that they've had a problem, saying that they've had an issue, there's ways that they can do that privately and get the support they need. And I would hope they would. But change is definitely happening.
And that's such an important point. Sorry, Toby, just to go.
Sorry. Well, I just, no, please. I would just like to ask a question, which is that you're right. There are men who want to help, to be a force for good. What can people who want to be strong male allies do?
It sounds small, but I think for most women who've been in receipt of bad behaviour or bad language, is being the guy that goes, no, that's not okay. You know, so if I rewind back to the some of the conferences that we've had where, you know, different women's groups have had to kind of put their head up and say, this wasn't okay. I've stood by my line of, actually, one of the fundamentally largest issue that I have as a woman at those conferences is how the men behave when they've had a handful of drinks. But the fact that you look at your friend, your colleagues that you think will step in and do something, and they do nothing. For me, it's being brave enough to go, actually, you know, that wasn't okay, what you've just done. Or like, not necessarily making a big hoo-ha. I'd be like, come on, mate, you know, let's do that. It's not a joke. And if we enable bad language, that becomes bad behaviour, and bad behaviour has massive consequences.
Kirsty, I'll come to you answer the same question. There's one thing that male allies could do, and I'll come to you, Chris.
Yeah, I think being a champion for equality. So yes, calling out bad behaviour, but also championing women as an equal place at the table as men, and understanding some of the challenges that we face as women, but then talking to us about the challenges that you face as men. This isn't about raising women up to make men smaller. This is about how do we together have an equal playing field.
And we don't get it right all the time. You know, like there's sometimes I go so heavy on the female voice that sometimes I forget that actually, no, we need both voices.
Yeah,
and
both
I'm
voices.
terrible for that. And so I put my hands up and say, I don't get it right all the time. And I think that's it. We all have to be able to be part of this change without fear of, you know, repercussions of that too.
And isn't it about just starting everything with kindness?
Yeah.
100%. There's an enormous amount of research about how just starting with kindness is both good for everyone involved. Sorry, Chris, you were going to say.
No. It was just to everyone's point. You know, completely agree with that. One of the biggest things that I always talk about when we're talking about women in the state agency and agents together as well. You know, fantastic. You know, a number of us are mentors for that. Is that women in a state agency isn't just for women. You know, we've worked with Kirsty and the team there for the last 3 years, you know, on their conferences and helping them to broaden that. But their senior leadership team has guys on it, you know, and it's really important that, you know, it's not like a segmentation. It's a partnership approach to try and just highlight some of these issues that affect people within our industry that we're all super passionate about. And yes, there will always be, you know, people who don't share some of those views, but I think the sway is starting to go the other way now. That's all I would say, and I think
that's such a
it's
good
a real
point.
thing.
But what I will let you boys into a secret is, behind closed doors on the group, we don't always get the same opinions, do we?
No.
You know, sometimes someone will say, oh, so and so's done this video, or so and so's done this, or this panel this, and you'll have 50% of the women being like, oh, that's awful, and 50% going, oh, well, actually, no, it's not like this. So even behind closed doors, you know, and that's the beautiful thing, we can share our opinions. Yeah.
So 2 final questions from me. We'll end on a positive, because I think there's a lot of positive stuff going on. But the first one would be, and this comes up a lot. Please don't cut this out as a soundbite for me, because I don't want me to be saying this. You hear this a lot. It's just banter. Where's our sense of humour gone? And there'll be people out there, again, screaming at the metropolitan liberal elite on the panel, defending all this wokery and snowflakery again. But what about sense of humour? What about it was just a joke? It was a compliment. I have my own view on that, but around the table.
This is something that's really close to my heart, because I believe that having a sense of humour in business, as in life, is crucial. There's business reasons for it. It can help to close deals. It can help to manage your team more effectively. But there are rules to it. Just saying you have a laugh doesn't mean you can say anything. You have to never punch down.
No.
Be self-deprecating. Recognise different personality types and adapt your humour to them. So just like with anything in life, you can't go blundering in, doing whatever you want without repercussions. There's always repercussions if you don't act with a forethought and care and delicacy. Humour doesn't mean everything's on the table. You have to think about it, and you have to adapt to your audience.
Yeah. Look, we're not perfect.
We're human.
We're not perfect, you know, but we're also not stand-up comedians. You know, the reality is, you know, you've got people like Jimmy Carr and, you know, who seek to offend. You know, Ricky Gervais at, you know, some of the biggest award shows in the world, and he'll seek to create controversy and, you know, to do that and, you know, have freedom of speech, whatever. But that's not our gig. No. That's not our gig. Our gig is to be professional people and to try and look after people and try and encourage business growth and development. Surely, as an industry, all we want to do really is look after our immediate family, our friends and our business and grow. So why are we trying to cause issue and controversy? I don't understand it. I can't fathom it.
So that sort of ends our conversation about discrimination. And I know it's a very it's not a difficult issue, but it's one we really need to get to and one the industry needs to keep digging into. But round the table, gender jaws, where senior people in the industry tend to lean towards male and more junior lean towards female, and there's lots of discrimination going on. Are you optimistic about we're going to crack this problem in our industry?
Yes, I am.
Toby?
Cautiously, and just to throw one more note in there are other areas of diversity which I think the industry does need to focus on. Gender obviously is a critical issue, but there's other areas of diversity as well that I do think we need more work on.
Very true. Optimistic?
I'm hopeful. That's all we can be. I think we can be hopeful. There are some incredible groups. We haven't mentioned the Boys Club, which is for male mental health. Ben Madden spearheading that. There are women's groups, there are male groups, there are groups that profess to be men and women that are collaborative. I'm hopeful that it can have positive change.
Brilliant. Megan, last word to you. Are you optimistic?
I am optimistic. We've got a lot of work to do, but I think that we, for the first time, have got the right people in place, the right groups in place, and we've got such an amazing group of men in our industry that are really where we need to start putting the power in the right hands, not just because somebody's made the most money. Let's start pushing the power in different ways because we have that power.
Brilliant. There's a great TED speaker called Aviva Wittenberg-Cox. I strongly recommend watching her TED Talks, and she very simply describes women aren't the problem, men aren't the enemy. We solve this together. Thank you.